The devil in a black cloak, street gospel, light of the temple. Sword swing, killer live from the ghetto. The hood messenger, let them know hell's close. Black burial, the devil in a black cloak.
Yo, what is up? Welcome to the Street Gospel Podcast. I'm your host, Dave One. And this is episode number... Yo, Cam, what episode is this?
Episode 42.
42. If you caught last episode, it was with Rachel Gutierrez Lindbergh. Great episode of Overcoming. Super stoked on that one. A lot of feedback on that one. Matter of fact, lady at work today hit me up and was like, hey, I heard that episode. I was like, what? I didn't even know she followed the podcast. But definitely a good episode. So make sure you check that out. Please subscribe. That's the biggest thing. So whatever platform you're watching this on, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, YouTube, whatever it may be, make sure you go out and subscribe and then share it. If you hear a good podcast, you like the stories, share it with somebody you may know. Now we got to get down to the business. But before we get down to that, I have a quick couple sponsors. I mean, sponsors are blowing up left and right, man. They're just popping up everywhere. No, I'm just kidding. We got two sponsors that I love dearly, man. Because why? Because they were my first two sponsors, and they're great, dear to my heart. First sponsor I want to talk about today is Hope and Promises. This is an organization started by my brother-in-law, attorney at law, Art Pena. So he wanted to start something along with my sister and their church, just to get out some basic necessities to the homeless, help people with medical needs, not only here in the United States and surrounding areas, but also in other countries. So they're trying to expand. If you can check them out, if you can support them, they're on the gram at Hope and Promises. They have their own website, www.hopeandpromises.com. They're doing big things, all for the love. Definitely for the streets. Check them out. Second sponsor is my church, Elevate Ministries. They're located in Orange, California. This is a family-oriented church. Great preaching, great worshiping. They could do a lot of cool stuff for the youth. Great child care. Check us out. Go and look them up on the gram at Elevate Ministries, or you can check them out at www.elevateministries.com. All right, so now we got that out of the way. You know, you always have to play music when we start the show. So I got a little banger right here. You know, I wasn't too sure what type of music my guests liked. Maybe I should listen to a show a little bit more and maybe get a feel for that. But I thought this was, you know, a little lo-fi hip-hop. I mean, pretty much everybody likes lo-fi. But this guy right here, he's a husband. He's a SoCal native. He's a political consultant. I mean, we're going to get a little bit more into that. He's the host of his own show on the Daily Caller. You got to check that out. He's blowing up on the gram. I mean, he's getting up there a few thousand. I mean, it's a little bit more than a few thousand. He's part of Turning Point USA. He's a contributor to that. We'll get a little bit into that and why that's important. I just found out today that he's a comedian. I should have known that. I mean, he's sarcastic. He's funny. That's what caught my eye with him. That's why I wanted to have him. Found out recently he's a musician. We'll get a little bit into that. Him and his wife play some music. I dug it. But I want to welcome to the show today. And you're going to laugh. We'll get into his name a little bit. Give it up for Jobob. What's up, man?
Do you think other people... Right now I have like a faster beating heart because I'm not that cool. All of the things that you just said are I guess accurate, but I'm not that cool.
You know what's funny about that is I've probably... How many episodes have we had? Maybe like in 42 episodes, I've had at least 15 people say that. Like, you make me sound way cooler than it. And I think it's because the music. I think it's the way we put it together. But I mean, the podcast only has cool people on it. That's the bottom line, dude.
I'm not that cool, man. I've been suffering from imposter syndrome. I've been. Do you know what that is? Have you heard of that?
Imposter syndrome. Go ahead, break it down for me.
Big stuff is happening to you, and you're like, well, this is not like I'm not worthy of all of this stuff happening.
Wow.
Or at least that's how it's been explained to me. I could be entirely off base on that, but that is a very real thing that I'm feeling constantly.
I mean, I've seen you. You're traveling. You're on a show. You're recording. The other day, you're with like Candace Owens. The next day, you're in Arizona. You're all over the place. So
that was one of those things, like the Candace Owens show. So Candace Owens does her show on Daily Wire, and I was lucky enough to get a call from them. And they fly you out, treat you like royalty. And I'm sitting there, being driven around with a guy by a guy in a suit in a limo. I'm like, what? Why? Like I'll take the bus. Like I don't need any of this. I'm glad they do it, and that they're top class over there. But
right.
I don't know. I'm like not.
I think that's dope though. I mean, you're still. I think the problem is going to be when you get to the point where you're expecting that.
That'll never happen.
Okay.
I've told too many people at this point.
Okay.
In hopes to stem that off, like later on, I'll never be above staying in a Motel 6 or like driving a 2004 Honda Accord. Like that's not like I will always be like that. I hope.
Why?
Hold me to it.
Why do you think you're always? Why do you always want to be?
Because I know people that are not.
Yeah.
And I know people that, and I'm not throwing shade at anybody, but that there are people out there that expect a certain level of gravitas when they enter a room, and that's I don't want to be that.
I think that's a good thing. I think staying humble, staying grounded, and just I think it gives you an opportunity for the experience, right? When you like to really enjoy the experience, it's when you're expecting, it's going to be like this, going to be like that. When you're grounded, you don't really expect all that stuff, and then you get it. You're like, this is cool. Like they have this show catered. Oh, this is cool. Yeah. This guy is picking me up in this limo. This is great.
Yeah, that's essentially
not
what
every
it is.
day, right?
No, it's almost 0 days. It's like one day for me.
And you kind of blew up. Okay, let me ask you this. The name.
Yeah.
Okay, so break down the name for me, bro. Jobob.
One grandparent was Joe. The other one was Bob.
Okay.
My parents YOLO'd and decided to make high school miserable. Kind of. No, that's the joke. But yeah, so there was an argument and a disagreement of which one they should name me after, and so they decided on both. And so that's how you get Jobob. That's how you get a brown guy with the Mississippi, Alabama backwoods name. It's funny,
Jobob.
Depending on where I go in the country, there's either a double take of what is your name, or there's that's
normal.
I have a brother named Jim Bob.
Well, I'm glad I wasn't named. My middle name is one of my grandfather's name, Ralph. Mm-hmm. My mom's dad was Albert, so Ralph Albert. I don't think it would have went really good as Joe Bob.
Ralph Bert.
Ralph Bert. Ralbert.
Yeah, Ralbert.
I don't know. It just doesn't go, dude. But you blew up. What I understand, like over the pandemic, is that true?
So,
as far as you were already working in the political area, but in the background, right?
Yeah. So I've been working in politics for a minute, like 10 years almost, running campaigns, doing different things. Probably most notably, and I don't know how much people pay attention to like local politics, especially given that your audience is everywhere. But a big campaign in 2018 was a guy named Travis Allen that we ran against Gavin Newsom in California. And then
he's probably come the closest, right?
We didn't get through the primary. There's a guy that had more money than us, so he got through the primary.
Because I remember that name.
Yeah. No, Travis is huge. Okay. No, Travis is he's a big figure in California politics.
Right.
And did pretty well relative to, the money that we had to spend. Obviously, more money you have in politics, the better you're going to do.
Fortunately.
Yeah, that's its own issue.
Yeah.
And so, let's see, probably about a year ago. Yeah, actually pretty close to a year ago now. Sat on the kitchen floor with my wife and made a decision. All right, we're going to go in front of the camera now and try and... I've been in politics a long time, right? Met a lot of people, seen a lot of interesting things in this political world. And the thing that I don't see, especially on the small government side that I tend to advocate for is a lot of levity. Everybody's serious all the time. Everybody's mad. And justifiably so. Like, people have the right and understandably why they're upset about things.
Right.
But there's a certain amount of anger that you can take before you kind of start tuning people out.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's what attracted me to you. There was a bringing a light and a funny light to some serious situations. I think, I think it was just getting tired of hearing the doom and gloom of the regulars that we see every day, right? And I get it. It is a lot of doom and gloom, but there was something about how you brought it across that made it a little funny. That really, like, if you were not conservative or whatever you want to call yourself, if you weren't that, you can kind of laugh at it if you really looked at it, right?
I appreciate that, and cool. that's the angle I'm going for, because and it's not necessarily, there's nothing wrong with any of those guys. Like, I know a lot of those guys that are very serious all the time.
Yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that message. What I tend to believe is there's a big other audience out there that isn't necessarily following along to politics and wouldn't, but if they can be brought in from an entertaining angle,
right,
then they would. And there's a market for all of the stuff that's already there, and I think there's just a big sector of humanity, especially in the United States, that is just kind of not really even 1 foot in, 1 foot out. They're just kind of not paying attention.
Yeah.
And I think the way that we get those people in to being engaged is bring them in with some humor and laughs and try and make it funny. Now, there's crazy serious things going on.
Yeah.
And I don't shy away from that stuff at all. Like, we talk about the serious stuff. But at the end of the day, the people that are barely paying attention are doing just that. And if you're going to continue hammering with the doom and gloom stuff, they're not going to be paying attention for long.
It's so crazy that you say that. I was, yesterday, a guy I know posted like 4 slides of the supposedly don't say gay bill, right? So this is kind of going along with what you're saying here. He was reposting and he was saying, "Oh, this bill got trolled by these teachers." Da 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 da. And when I asked him, I said, "Did you read the bill?
Yeah.
Do you know what it's talking about? It doesn't say anything about gay or anything like that." He didn't actually read it, but he posted 4 slides about it, and he's laughing about it, and it almost seems like he knew what he was talking about. When I asked him, "Hey, you really think this is a good idea?" And then he went back and he read it. He hit me up 30 minutes later. He goes, "I just read it." And he goes, "I'm going to have to change some of those slides."
Well, that's the majority of America.
Right.
And honestly, I don't really blame them for it. And I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. But emotionally, I think I've been desensitized to the different political tricks that people try and pull, right? I've been ingrained enough into the political back-end consultant world to where that stuff doesn't really make me angry. Like, when I heard the don't say gay bill, which is what they've affectionately called it, in my head I'm like, that's not even close to accurate.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people's reaction to that is like being mad about it. My reaction is like, that's wrong, but interesting play. Like, this is a giant chess move, and I see what you're doing. How can I counteract it in a way that isn't just mad?
Yes.
Right? Because I feel like that's the tendency. People bring their emotions into it. And again, I don't blame anybody for doing that. I've just been doing this long enough to understand spin and try and decipher that spin, as opposed to just immediately get angry and say all those people are dumb.
Right.
Because they're not.
Right.
Right? It's a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's what they're being fed. They don't 100% understand. I'm always surprised when you kind of. It's very hard to get somebody that's going to listen to both sides, and I'm guilty of making a hard stance on something, and I don't want to hear what you have to say. I've done that before.
Yeah.
I've learned. Okay, I can hear you out, and I want you to hear me out, and we can agree to disagree. Shake hands and walk away. I just think sometimes I hear people say things, and it's just not that. I mean, we could talk for everything, especially Second Amendment. It's like, well, that's you can't just go and buy a gun today with no ID. Like, do you know that? Well, they said,
Yeah.
no, you can't.
Yeah.
Like, it's just false information or spin. We kind of saw that with the shooting in Sacramento the other day. Everybody jumped on the bandwagon until we got the facts, right?
Yeah.
We need the facts.
Yeah. My mind is going in 7 different directions at one time right now. It's an interesting culture, and it's going to be really, really fascinating to see how it plays out. Because at the onset of the internet, and don't worry, I'll make my way back eventually, but at the onset of the internet, the optimists out there are like, we're never going to have bad information again. Like, everybody's going to have correct information instantaneously.
Right.
That's the best part about this whole thing called the internet. They were very, very wrong.
Right.
And so now the problem is not necessarily getting information to people, but getting information to people that is, one, as accurate as you can make it, and two, digestible, because there's so much out there. And in terms of getting people to, let's just say I have an objective, right? And that objective is to get people to my side of the aisle or my side of an argument or whatever it is. It does me no good to block out the other effective sides of that argument, right? The people that have differing opinions and make good arguments for those differing opinions, it doesn't make any sense for me to block that out.
Right.
Like, you take it in, figure out, one, do they have a point? Because maybe they do. And two, if they don't have a point, how are you going to refute it? Because that's the position I think a lot of people are in, and they just kind of shut out everything that they don't like. And while that can be satisfying in a way, it's not beneficial.
Right.
To, like, you have to... That's got to be like a Sun Tzu quote of "Know your enemy" or something like that.
It is.
Art of war. Like, that's not that this is I'm not even going to go there.
But
you
want to understand their point of view because it makes your argument better. How are you gonna know really how to fight back not in a literal sense, but how to fight back if you don't know what they believe in?
Yeah.
And then like you said, there's some times when I've gotten a great point.
Yeah.
I have had a friend on here, and we've talked about a lot of things. We talked about prison reform. We talked about different things, and after a while, I'm like, yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I didn't see it that way, but I understood a lot of things, and I think the lines of communication are just black and white now. And there's no more gray. There's no more. We used to have maybe somebody that was just left of center or just right of center, and they would blend some things. Now it's like far left, far right.
I think most of America is still within that 80% margin. There's the 10% on the fringes, right? But I think most of us are still in that, like, center area. And I think the reason for that is that most people aren't paying attention, so they're kind of just de facto in that center. But everybody that I've talked to, like, I have friends I live in California. I have friends on all political spectrums. I was on a podcast with a avowed communist a couple weeks ago. Gee. And, like, I don't shy away from that conversation because, like, turns out we agreed on a lot. Obviously not the bigger, broader scope.
I do agree on that. I do agree that we agree on more, especially now.
Most people agree on most things. Look at the polling on pretty much everything. Like any big hot topic issue, like immigration, 80% of Americans agree on immigration. That's not a wedge issue at all. Like, there's no dividing component in there.
True.
It's the outer edges of people on the side that I tend to agree with that say, no immigration, just cut it all off. And that's a very, very small minority of people. Yeah. And then other people way over here saying, we should just let everybody through. But the majority of us are like, no, we should stop illegal immigration at the border and then figure out how many legal immigrants we want a year.
Right.
That's not a controversial opinion.
I tell people that all the time. I say, look, if I work in construction, a lot of different opinions, a lot of different things.
Totally. I
tell guys all the time, hey, Dave, you're a Christian, you're a conservative. I don't believe in that stuff. It's cool. Mm-hmm. It's cool. Let me ask you a few questions. And I go into my little thing. Do you believe that your neighborhood should be safe? Yeah. You think your kids should be safe at their school? Yeah. Okay, so safety is one thing, right? Yeah, I agree with it. Do you think the government should have a say in everything you do? Shouldn't we have less government? Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about taxes, man? We get killed on taxes, right? And you think we should be taxed this much? And they go, no, man, this is crazy. You got my bonus the other day. 40% was gone. That's crazy, right? Yeah. Do you want to just be left alone and just get your paycheck and nobody bother you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Do you think people should be able to worship their God? Whatever God. Doesn't have to be Jesus. Any God. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I said, bro, we're more alike than you think. Yeah. You want safety? I want safety. How does that play out? Well, maybe more police. Maybe believe in protecting yourself with a gun, legally, whatever it may be. But that's all the same thing. So we pull it all together, and it's like, and the guy's scratching his head. I go, so you're a conservative, kind of like me, dude. And he's like, no, I'm not. I go, it's just in name only. Yeah. But in your beliefs, you want those things.
So it's interesting. I run into this problem a lot, just given the medium that I'm working in now. A lot of labels get thrown around, like you're a conservative, or you're a liberal, or you're a neocon, or you're a libertarian. I'm not a big fan of labels. I think labels are for soup cans, because I think, again, like most of America is a little bit of a bunch of different things. Right. Like on like social issues, I just don't have a strong. I just don't care. Like what have traditionally been long held conservative beliefs socially. It's not that I don't want to make an impact culturally. We have bigger fish to fry. Like the debt is way more important, I think, than, name your social issue.
Right.
But one of the problems with the labels is people get pigeonholed. Like your friend would say, like probably, or correct me if I'm wrong, would be like, dude, you're a Republican and you don't know it. Or you're a this and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
And the fact that there's a label is what turns people off. So I'm not a big fan of labels.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. So we should say maybe right and wrong? Is that how we should call this?
I don't even... Because then you force people into, wait, you think I'm wrong?
One side or the other.
Yeah, okay. and it's again, it's more of a... Like my thing, when people ask me, like, where do you stand are you a conservative or are you a liberal? My one sentence answer is, I think the government is not good at doing things and therefore should do less things. And that kind of covers all the bases. Like,
that's true.
And nobody that I've talked to so far, right, left, center, really disagrees with that.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, the government's pretty bad at things. Like, you ever tried to go to the DMV?
Yeah.
What's the VA look like? All of these things that people can point to is like, no, the government's bad at things. Okay, and so because we've concluded the government is not good at things, I think they should do less things. Would that make sense? Like, if you were a bad cook, do you think people are going to want you to cook more or less? Like, yeah, if you're not good at it,
right, stop
doing stuff. And so, rather than answering the question of like, oh, I'm definitely a conservative, which, I'll be open with it. The overwhelming majority of my beliefs align with the conservative movement, whatever that is. But I try as hard as I can to not label things because it turns people off.
That's what I was going to say right now. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. Because they have a misconception or they have a... It's kind of like church, right? If you have a bad experience at church, and then you invite somebody to church, and you're like, come to my church, and your church can be the greatest church. But because they had a bad experience somewhere else, that's the label they give to every church.
Well, and think about it, too. Like, think about how that person's idea would be different if you said, hey, we're going to go to a concert and then a TED Talk. They'd be like, oh, yeah, I'll come. Right. Okay, well, it's called church. Now they're like, nah, I'm out. You know what I mean? So it's like it's the same type of thing. Like labels, people get stuck with these labels which they don't really understand fully, but impact the way that they look at things. And so my kind of thing is like, we're not really changing any of the beliefs or any of the ideologies. We're just not labeling it because in the grand scheme of things, I think and I believe that the majority of people fall in line with what I think and what the majority of us think. It's the labels that like kill people.
It's a great point. No, you seem young.
Yeah.
I'm a little
not that young.
Okay. I'm a little
31.
30. Okay, 31. Gee, I wish I was 31. No wonder why I saw you the other day, half marathon. Like, no big deal.
Oh, geez.
I was like, this guy, 12 miles. Like, yeah, we're just gonna run to the beach, and then like, I don't know, maybe a little while later you're at the beach, and I'm like, and then you're like 12 miles. I'm like, 12 freaking miles. I was like, dude,
Yeah.
So
I don't know what that was.
so-
That was a boredom.
so you're young. When you sat down with your wife and said, "This is what we want to do. I want to do," were you kind of worried because there is a risk that comes with taking a stand?
So there's no my decision. In I don't know how other people's marriages work. Like there's a if I'm doing something, it is both of us doing it.
No,
and if she's not on board, like I don't do it.
No, you saw my house when you walked in, right?
Oh, yeah.
So that's my wife's thing, dude. The house has to be spick and span. I couldn't have booked you like today. If I would have ran into my favorite fighter, Nick Diaz or somebody, and said, "Come to my house, do the podcast," and he would have came, my wife would say, "No, I have to clean. It's got to look immaculate." So I get
it looks great.
Thanks,
but
man.
like you even have the vacuum lines like on the carpet.
Here we
it's
go,
unbelievable.
dude. She's gonna love you forever, dude.
It looked like a staged house, like somebody you were coming in to take realty photography.
She's gonna shed a tear.
But back to your question of like, what did that look like? This is. I have two pulling sides to being a public figure. Like I already talked about the idea of imposter syndrome. I love making content. I was a productions guy before I was doing all this stuff. I nerd out on all the tech stuff. I like making jokes. I like the news. Obviously, I like politics. But the idea of celebrity and fame, and I'm not saying I'm there, it weirds me out. And so to answer your question of like what does that conversation look like, I'm still not entirely sure I want to be doing what I'm currently doing, but it's going pretty okay.
Yeah.
So
you blew up pretty fast. I mean, you got out there quick. We have a mutual friend, Mike, and I was like, "Mike, you know this guy?" He's like, "Oh yeah, dude. He over the pandemic, he just exploded. He's a great guy." And I was just like, man. So when you came and we were talking before the show, I was like tripping out because you were just real chill about everything, like no big deal. I mean,
well, I've never fanboyed over things. Actually, I lied. You know who James Lindsay is?
No.
He is. I'm not going to go into the whole. Interesting guy to look up. You should check him out. He's on the front lines of combating like critical theory and all that sort of stuff.
Okay. That
dude is wicked smart, and he's like way smarter than I think I will ever be. So I like nerded out like meeting him. Other than that that I can like think of, like people are just people. Like there's like there are people that are more popular than other people. There are people that are more outspoken. There are people that do different interesting things. But like people are people, and to me, I've never been like one to fanboy over any particular person just because they're a person. And so I hope that comes across as like, yeah, dude, like this is cool. Like we're hanging out, and not like this big bombastic like I'm here, everyone revere me. But
I think when we what attracted me to your page and your show was you seem like somebody that I grew up with, or somebody I know. So I think that's part of the appeal that you have is like, yeah, this guy reminds me of my neighbor, or reminds me of this dude I go to church with, or reminds me of this guy I play sports with, whatever. I think that's the appeal, and I think exactly what you're saying comes off.
I hope it does. And again, I know people that are above like some like, oh, this is my ground floor. Like I will never be above taking public transportation, or like at least I will work constantly to never be above that or be like prissy. And so I don't know, maybe that's where that comes from. I just don't. You know what it is? It's because I've worked with a bunch of politicians, and I know how they act, and I know how they treat the video staff, and I know how they treat the production people in the campaign office, and when the cameras are off, and then it's different when the cameras are on.
Got it.
And I like. Oh,
so you have that attitude of almost like the mail room to the boardroom type of. I did
that job.
Yeah.
Like I did what the production crew over at TPUSA. Fantastic, by the way. Like, that's a bad example because everybody over there is like super nice and
They treat
very
everybody
humble.
good.
Yeah, they treat everybody good. But like, I've been on sets where like, the nobody goes and says hello to the cameraman. But like, I was there. Like, I was there 12 months ago. Not like, oh, I did that, 20 years ago. Like, no, like I still do that. Like I did a photo shoot for a campaign on Saturday. Like I'm still doing all that sort of stuff. So I don't know. I don't ever want to treat people like different people do different things. There's no, everybody puts their pants on one leg at a time type of thing.
Was there a risk though? Did you think about, is there a risk to make a stand, especially now in the woke culture of everything? Did you feel like if I put it's a little easier to be behind the camera, it's a little bit to run a campaign, but to get in the front and really, now your face is there and now everybody knows you and now everybody's like searching your gram to see who your wife is, who you know, right? Is there a risk to that with making a stand?
There's a reason why I waited till I was 30 years old to go in front of the camera. I'm terrified, like, by all of that sort of stuff. Like, I like, and it's not necessarily me. I just don't want to put people that I love, my wife, my family, in a position to where, whatever is happening, which happens in the public eye, which is, I don't know. So the answer to your question is there fear? Yeah, no, there still is. Like, constantly. Like, do you say something? And two, I do a live show. Like, it's live to Daily Caller's 6 million Facebook people.
That's wild.
And like, it's crazy thinking like, well, if I slip up and accidentally say something that I don't actually mean, but it's all extemporaneous speaking, you could be screwed. Like, yeah, that's terrifying. Yeah. And I think I've worked to overcome that, especially, the more you do it, the more you're comfortable you are, and the more lines, where your line is. But yeah, there's some jokes that'll just pop into my head that like I have to like
process,
quality control it in real time while talking about something else, trying to think of, and you'll see it too if you ever watch the Daily Caller show. Like, I'll sit there and pause and go, yeah, I shouldn't say that. Anyways, but yeah, no. To answer your question, yeah, it's I don't know. It's still terrifying. I don't know if that goes away.
Yeah.
It just kind of is what it is. You're the same thing, right? The same.
I am the same thing.
It takes some guts to start a podcast and just put what you think out into the world,
right? And we don't edit anything. We don't go live, which I probably would be a little bit nervous for sure. But I've been on my friend's podcast and. Great podcast. They helped me, inspired me to get started a little bit, but they were a little bit different. They started talking crazy in the beginning, and I was I was sitting there, and they were live, and I'm sitting there, and I'm like, I don't agree with this. They started going a little crazy, and I'm like, I was looking at my buddy, like, I'm coming on your podcast. You told me to come on your podcast to talk about, different races and how we commingle, and this guy's talking about like. We can fight the police, and I'm like, I started doing the Homer Simpson in the bush thing, dude, just backing up. But
I want to hear hilarious. You know who Larry Elder is?
Yeah.
So I've known Larry for a while. Back when I was running a governor's race, there was a rally, and they did a panel of people that were talking about I don't know what. And Larry was up there, and my client was up there. Just talking, and then one guy did exactly what you're like. He goes off on like into crazy land, and Larry stands up and says, "I have to use the restroom," and then he walked out, got in his car, and left because he knew like I don't need to be here now. When I saw him do that, I yanked my guy off the stage because we can't like But sometimes there's just nothing you can do. Like it's a live show, and whatever happens. But yeah, no,
it's wild.
People handle it differently. Larry just left, and good move by him. Right. Like, he doesn't want to be sitting on that stage.
Larry's an old pro.
Oh,
you know what I mean? He's like, I'm done.
Yeah, and I asked him about it several months later. Like, hey, you did this. You remember doing this? Like, oh yeah, I had to go to the bathroom. And I'm like, all right. He's like, I just prefer my home bathroom. He's a smart guy.
He is. He had a rally down the street. Maybe like 2-3 months ago.
Yeah.
And went down there, met him. It was cool. Waited around for me. It was a cool dude. I should have asked him to be on the podcast, but I kind of froze up.
He's busy.
He was moving, and I was lucky to get a picture with him. Let me ask you this. What is the main Now, you work with Turning Point USA, particularly for students. What is the main problem with students that you see?
This is a big one. This answer can go in a bunch of different directions. To boil it down, I think it really goes to the idea of paying attention. I mean, you can get into all of the indoctrination, if you want to call it that up through the Howard Zinn textbooks. I don't know how like deep you've dug into all that sort of stuff of like teaching kids to like hate America and all that sort of stuff. Right. Like that's obviously a big problem. But when it comes down to it, I genuinely think it is the compassion component that younger people have, which I don't think is a bad thing, but it's a reality. And the idea of being able to pay attention to what's going on. There's I think it's Churchill, don't quote me on that, but a quote that says, if you're not a liberal in your 20s, you have no heart. If you're not a conservative in your 30s, you have no brain. Which is pretty.
It's pretty accurate.
Yeah, like the second you become in your late 20s or your 30s and you start looking at the tax bill and then you start looking at the roads around and then you start looking at the crime in the area that you live in, you start going, okay, so maybe some of the policies seem a little mean because they're not doing everything for everyone, which I wouldn't say is actually mean, but that's how you viewed it up until now. Oh, crap, man, maybe the government isn't Santa Claus.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the biggest thing. I tell people, especially young people, like, it's cool. You can think that.
I don't fault young people for thinking like young people.
Yeah. I used to listen to Rage Against the Machine. I was down with all that. You know what I mean? But when you start having kids, you start having to pay a mortgage. You have to start having to pay some bills. You watch your taxes get taken away. You kind of your thoughts begin to change. You got a little bit more on your plate now. It's not just you in mom's basement anymore. It's you.
Life has altered your perspective.
Something else.
Yeah. And there's we can do all we can, and Turning Point does a great job at getting kids earlier because obviously you can still vote when you're 18, and a lot of people are still in that phase at 18. I know I was. Yeah. Turning Point does a great job at reaching a lot of those students. But even if they can't, just wait till they're 30, or 35. Like in most cases, people start waking up.
They change it on their own.
Yeah, and then you've got to go into it. Never mind. Sorry. There's because then you've got the problem you have then is if you shrink the tax base, right? So like what is it? 50% of people, I think in 2020, like 60% of Americans didn't pay taxes at all, like federal income tax at all. And so when you have a population that doesn't pay taxes, why would they care? Right. And so that's where you have those problems going in because people that would want more government know that the older people get, the more they care about what's being done with their money. So if they don't have any stake in the game, they won't care anymore. Yeah. And so that's a different fight on a different front. But I guess, the Turning Point does a great job with younger people. And unfortunately, the reality of the situation is they're young. And I don't know how much you can fault young people for being young. Do
you see some hope though? Is there some hope?
Yeah, it's there's a TikTok is huge nowadays, obviously. There are young people on TikTok every single day getting red-pilled with just, like, stuff. Like, oh, I didn't know this was this. And what's interesting culturally, right, like, so in the 70s, 80s, whenever punk rock was around, it was cool as a young person to be counterculture. Like, I was like that. Looks like you were like that.
Right.
And that's the cool thing to do. And so now that the mainstream of everything, Disney, sports, Hollywood, all of your education system is like so ingrained going one direction, it's like almost like counterculture and like cool to be like...
The new punk rock.
Yeah, the new punk rock is like wanting less government in a lot of circles. And I don't know, that's in terms of like hope, there's a lot just from that angle. There's also... I said this on Candace's show, is that the current president is doing everything he can to alienate people from his side. And that doesn't mean they necessarily come all the way to our side, but they get forced into the middle. They get forced into curiosity. And now it's our job, or Turning Point's job, or people who with a small government mindset, their job to go, yeah, come on over. We'll hold your hand, and thanks for coming, and no harm, no foul. Like, you thought what you thought, and...
Do you think it's gotten so bad that it's made it almost easier? It's like
that's what
obvious, right?
Yeah, it's there's a lot. I never want to be one of those people that just continually complains constantly without looking for solutions, but it's hard not to do. Like, everything has been a debacle in the last year, and a lot of us were calling that way before.
Right.
And again, bad things happen, and, sometimes there's no avoiding it. But in this instance, there was. And, I'm sure the people of Ukraine would really like some mean tweets right now.
Right.
Like, you
Right.
want to get into that whole thing.
I was watching Drink Champs, and it's an old rapper, Nori, and his DJ, and they interview like hip hop artists. And it's entertaining. Let's just say that. But the DJ guy says he didn't want to admit it 100% because they can't.
Because the labels, that's the problem.
Because they can't.
Freaking labels,
and he wouldn't. So they had they're interviewing a famous DJ. And he said he did a party at Trump's, and he was like, yeah, they took care of me. It was like it was great, great. And they were both, the two hosts were kind of holding back a little bit, and then they got a little political. The guy, the one DJ, he was just like, no, I'm not going to say nothing about him. Kind of just backed up. The other DJ that was the host, he kind of goes, well, I kind of don't think Russia would be tripping if that dude Trump was in office. And then the main host is just like, wait, and he's well, and he kind of puts it in reverse a little bit and trying to take. You can tell just a little this probably wouldn't happen, and just to have like somebody admit that, I think that's going on a lot nowadays, where people are like, yeah, things were a lot chiller. Dude, you know what I mean? Maybe it was a little it was a little volatile. I mean, he tweets and stuff, but who cares?
Yeah.
I felt safe.
Yeah.
I had more money in my pocket. My 401k was blowing up. I mean, there was all these other things that looked really good.
Well, the other thing that I think too is that a lot of people that are your Trump derangement syndrome people that just really, really hated him. I think a lot of the things that they missed too is there's a lot of stuff that he said that I didn't like either. Right. And that's, I think, one of the biggest components that a lot of people don't miss. They're like, wait a minute, no, you loved everything he did. Like, no, dude, the guy shoved his foot in his mouth a ton of times. Yes. That doesn't mean I disliked the policy side. Like, the policy side was fantastic. But I'm sure even he would, if you got him alone in a room and say like, hey, were there some things that you probably shouldn't have said? I would guarantee you he'd be like, yeah, there were some things that probably wasn't the best idea.
Right.
But I think people see it as an all or nothing thing, which you get back into the labeling people.
I think that's the biggest thing.
And then when they see it as an all or nothing thing, they go, well, you must think this and this and this and this. Like, no, man, like, people are more nuanced than that. Like, that's not how the human brain operates.
Yeah, I think when I tell people that, I say, look, man, I didn't agree with everything you said. But, I mean, there is some things, and I'm sure
you... He didn't either. Yeah. He didn't agree with everything he said.
I'm sure you would agree with that, too. I mean, that's just the way it goes. I mean, nobody... I mean, there's only one person in this world I agree with everything he said, and that was Jesus. That's it. And I tell everybody that there's nobody else. That's it. So, but political-wise, I mean, there's always going to be something I don't 100% agree with. And I think that's the problem that we run into still is... black or white. You're either on this side or that side. No middle ground, no gray. And then it's even harder for people just to admit even a small thing. Like, I did feel safer then. Or we didn't worry about war. Or there wasn't no new wars. And it was like, can we agree on that? And all they say, I can't agree with that because no matter what, it's going to put me on one side. And it's not entirely true.
Dude, I wish, for the sake of trying to bridge the gap. I wish there was a thing that I could point to that Joe Biden did. And I'm like, that's fine. I don't care about that. That's actually good.
Right.
The problem is they freaking can't. Like, I want to find that one thing where I can give him credit for so that I can be at least not cut off from the rest of people who you know, don't think they didn't like the last guy a lot.
Right.
I mean, Obama had a couple of those. Remember the tan suit controversy? He wore a tan suit.
The first one to wear a light suit because most presidents wore dark blue or black
or
suits,
black
right?
or gray
Yeah,
or something like
okay.
that. Yeah, and he wore like a light suit to like a press conference, and like my side of the aisle freaked out about that.
Dumb.
And like it would have been like, I don't care about that. Like I don't care about that at all.
Yeah.
And like that was a sort of a kind of a bridge to go like, yeah, I think that was really dumb that
Right.
people that I agree with policy wise freaked out about that. And that helped. That helped open the door to, okay, this person is reasonable. Maybe
Yeah.
I don't disagree with them, but maybe let me hear what I have to say. But in so many situations, you have people that just can't hear any other side,
Right.
Because and then they just get cut off, like the DJ you were talking about.
Yeah,
That-
he was kind of. I could tell that he was a little bit leaning that way. Then he kind of just
well,
like,
dude, he drives a car too.
Yeah.
Like he knows what gas prices are right now,
Right.
And like is looking at how much meat costs in the grocery store. I have to take out a second mortgage on my home to go grocery shopping.
we're eating
nowadays.
potato tacos now. There's no meat in them. There's just potatoes.
The problem is potato tacos are delicious.
I know. I agree.
So
let me throw a couple things at you.
Yeah.
And maybe some quick. Well, not as fast, but short answers. What do you think about these items?
okay.
Immigration.
What do you like? What
Like what do you believe about immigration? For me, I think there's a false thing that says we don't take in the most immigrants of any other country, and I think people don't know that, and I think that they don't understand that we just can't take in everybody.
This is the problem with this is not really even a policy or a preference thing. Like people want to talk about like, oh well, you think this, and you're like, no, this is just what is. What is that we can't, like you said, we can't take in anybody. So if we can't take in everybody, there's a limit, right? What is that limit? That's up to Congress to figure out. That's they can argue about that in their own right. And on top of that, okay, so if we can't take in everybody, how do we stop the people that we can't take in? Again, up to Congress.
Right.
They don't do anything. So that's when you talk like immigration, it honest to God is not a right or left thing. It's a function of reality. It's like
it's a capacity thing.
Right. Like how many people can you fit in this
Okay.
nightclub? Like there's a 1,000-person capacity limit. You can't cram 10,000 people in there. Okay,
Right.
so you have to put a limit on it. And again, this is not a left or right side. It's just how things work.
Right.
And so, yeah, when I talk immigration, like set a limit, figure out how many people can come in, and then for the people that do come in, have a vetting process. And like Donald Trump would say, like all of your big conservative people would say, is we like immigration. Like immigration's great. Our social security system cannot stand zero immigration.
Right.
It's not feasibly possible. We need young people coming into this country and working hard. And so that isn't even really like an issue. It's not that like, oh, these people don't like brown people. Like
So is it
doesn't functionally work.
Is it used as, like you said, as a weapon to say, oh, they don't like you, or they don't like brown people, they don't like people of color, they don't like you just crossing the border and coming in here? That is it used more as a weapon then?
Let me ask you this question. Do you think that smart people from both sides can be in a room for a week and figure it out?
Oof.
Get rid of the political side.
Oh yeah, I do.
Oh,
I
so
do.
then that's the answer.
Yeah.
Is it used to wedge people and divide people? Absolutely, because it's not a difficult problem to solve. Get 10 people from both sides of the aisle in a room for a week. I guarantee you they come out with a comprehensive immigration reform system that both sides are happy with. And both sides are happy with it, again, because 80% of America agrees.
Good point.
Political theatrics is, I think, one of the biggest drivers for me to be in the public world. Like, calling out stuff for, like, this is a stunt. This is a political stunt.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people, again, get very emotional about stuff and not realize, like, oh, this isn't really like an emotional thing. This is literally a political stunt.
Right. I think like Maxine Waters the other day.
Yeah.
She goes to her district, right?
She doesn't live in.
That she hasn't lived there forever, right? Hasn't done anything for that district. She wants to talk to the homeless. The first thing she says when they start yelling is, "Everybody go home."
Yeah.
They have no home.
Yeah.
She didn't go there to help nobody.
No.
She went to show some face. Hey, I'm here, and we're gonna stunt.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing too is not to go across the issues spectrum, but a bunch of people in Congress, the only thing they care about is getting reelected.
Yeah.
And so look at all of the foreign engagements that we've had. Wars is what other people call it. Nobody votes on that, right? Congress has to approve the United States going to war. But especially in a lot of the places we're in the Middle East, rather than be on the record, because once you're on the record, either it goes well or it goes poorly. And whatever side you were on, your opponent's going to hit you with that. And so rather than put their vote on the line, which is what we elected them to do, they just don't vote.
Yeah.
Or they don't do anything. And then the
Horrible.
executive has a bunch of power and all that sort of stuff. And so a lot of these issues that come up at immigration, tax reform, name it, they're not super difficult to solve. It's that Congress sucks,
Doesn't do
quite
their job.
honestly. They don't do anything.
Right.
And that's not just one side of the aisle, by the way. Like,
No, that's both sides.
There's a lot of people on that I would agree with policy-wise that just don't do anything because they're more worried about keeping their seat indefinitely than actually making functional change.
Because it is a great job, right?
Oh, talk about the most cush gig in the world, and you also gotta.
They
There's
get
a
like
saying,
6 months off or something like that. It's ridiculous.
there's a saying. A lot of people went to Congress to do good. They ended up doing well. There's a lot of money on the back end there too. So the longer you stay in, the longer you don't make your district mad, the longer you can stay in. And the longer you stay in, the more money you're going to make. So
All bad. Okay, next one. Person of color. What nationality are you?
my dad is Samoan.
Okay.
My mom is Irish.
Okay.
So like
Good mix.
named Jobob. Like go figure. I probably have the most teeth of any Jobob you know though. So
So you're dating the haku in a little
a kilt.
Yeah, a kilt.
I think a kilt is Scottish,
Oh, my
but I
bad.
get the joke. No, the joke is good.
Oh man. Oh, that was not good.
I think my mom's probably Scottish too.
Okay, so person of color, a lot of people go to a point in this country where this country was bad on race.
Oh yeah.
And I've talked about on the show my grandfather, my great aunts being escorted out of Glendale because they didn't live there and they went to school there, but they had to be out by 5:00. Yeah, crazy. They lived in the Roger Young Village, which was in the LA Zoo area, and they lived in poor housing that was there back in the day, little Quonset hut. But they got escorted out of there. I've never been a person that, dwelled on that. And my grandfather and my great aunts, when they told me that story like 5-6 years ago, I was like, wow, that's crazy. But they were all successful. What do you think about the people that bring up those times and just constantly that they've never experienced? I've never been escorted out of a city because of the color.
Of course.
So but I don't ponder on those things. I remember those things. I remember where we came from, but I don't use that as a crutch to say I'm not here because of what they went through 60 plus years ago. Maybe longer than that. Maybe 70.
When it comes to race, I could not think of a thing that I care about less. When you want to talk jobs, no business owner that I know, and I know a lot, care at all. It's can you do the job and who will make me the most money? It doesn't matter if you're black, white, Puerto Rican, gay, literally doesn't matter at all in the real world. It only matters as a function of a political advantage. And so when people talk about historic wrongs, there is a point there. Like COINTELPRO, I don't know if you know about like what J. Edgar Hoover was doing with the FBI, like infiltrating people that should. There's a lot of bad problems.
There was a lot of bad things.
There's a lot of bad things that happen to different people, different races.
Right.
So nobody's saying that didn't happen. My question to all of the people that want the government to get involved is, given its track record, do you think the government will make this problem better or worse? Now, again, that's not saying that some of the stuff that happened in the past was terrible, because it was.
Yeah.
Like, nobody's denying that.
Right.
But there's no government fix that, like, makes any sort of historical wrong go away, right? That's, that's good luck if you think that that's the case. And how do you fix it generationally? Like, work hard. Like, I have to believe, and I do believe, but like none of the ideological ground that I stand on holds up if a person who's willing to work hard in this country can't make it, right?
Yeah.
You can't. Like, that's just the reality. So I don't know, man. I was talking to you know who MAGA Hulk is? He's just this
big black dude.
Yeah,
I know who he is.
We were talking about.
I didn't want to put a label on him, but yeah, that's that big black dude.
Yeah, no, that's what he is. That he'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. We were talking like, different. Dang it, I lost my train of thought. We talk a lot about the whole race component within politics, and it's nobody is going to give you a leg up that you don't get yourself. Maybe you're sorry, let me rephrase that. Nobody's going to give you a leg up that didn't already pay for it. In other words, even if somebody has quote unquote privilege, whatever that is, somebody did something, whether it was you, your parents,
right.
Your parents sacrificed for you, to give you a position that maybe other people don't have. Like, that's the whole point of being a parent, is like work your butt off so that your kids have it better off than you did. My parents did it. Your parents did it. So when you break it down, when you break down privilege in general, it's a weird thing to grapple with. And then you break down privilege by skin color. Like, I don't even know. That's what I was talking about. Me and Stephen Davis, MAGA Hulk, we're talking about the idea that why does this keep happening to me? You know what? I feel like these are loud, and I'm like listening to myself talk. Gotcha. I'm sorry. We were talking about the idea of taking these like racial attacks seriously. Like, at what point do you just stop fighting back because it doesn't hold any ground, and you just say, sure, whatever? Like, he gets called a white supremacist. Big black dude gets called a white supremacist.
Well, Elder too. Same thing.
Oh yeah, the black face of white supremacy. Like, at what point do you could stop fighting back against that and then just like laugh and like move on?
Yeah.
I think the answer is like now. Like, so when you ask about like, well, what about racial issues? Like, I don't have time for this. Like,
yeah.
Work hard, you'll get ahead. Like,
and
God bless America.
Do you find that students in particular think there's some fantasy country out there that's better than here because they haven't been anywhere else? I've talked to guys. I know a lot of artists. I know tattoo artists that grew up in Pomona, in the rough streets of Pomona, not in the good side.
Yeah,
and they'll tell me, like, I've been all over the world tattooing. There ain't no better place than here. This is the best place. This is the place where I was a convicted felon, and now I own my own shop and make a great living. And why don't what do people think? Like, there's some other place out there that they can go to, or they can try to change this and make this better. It's not perfect, and there's no perfect place out there. But what is the thinking behind that?
I think that it goes back to that young people are idealistic and think that the world can operate how it should. That makes sense? Like, in a perfect world, there's there's no problems.
Education is free.
Yeah, which is everything works out. But like when I was young, I used to think like, oh yeah, why don't we just do this? This would fix everything. Not realizing like, oh, that's not possible. And as much as I want something to be true, it's just not. And so if you have that mindset on the world, you're probably pretty easily tricked into thinking things like race matter when it comes to the amount of skill and the amount of work that you can do, right? Like you said, there's no legal advantage that anybody has over anybody else in this country based on the amount of pigment they have in their skin. But if you think the world should operate where everybody should be equal, you would look at some of the statistics of minorities getting locked up more. You wouldn't take into consideration, well, maybe they commit more crime. But you would look at that and go, oh yeah, well that's bad. And it's easy, that's how you get tricked into that sort of thinking, is you're idealistic and not really paying attention all that much. I was talking to Amala, I'm going to butcher her last name.
I know who you're talking about.
From PragerU yesterday. And she was telling me about like, oh yeah, I used to be like this big super leftist and like go and like campaign for like these super woke organizations. And I was like, dang, why? She's like, I don't know. I just like thought that was what you were supposed to do.
So crazy.
And then I started questioning things and I'd get attacked for questioning things. And that was like the aha moment of like, whoa, okay, maybe it's a little bit more nuanced than I might have thought. So I don't know. That's just I think young people are just susceptible to that thing. And again, I don't blame young people for being young, but they're also dumb. Like young people are stupid. No offense. I'm sorry. I'm not sure how old you are. But
21.
Like, yeah, statistically, you're not as smart as. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But like
he gets it though. He's like, okay, I can learn this stuff.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's open to learn different things, and that's what I like about him. Like he'll and he's really great at listening to both sides. Which sometimes I'm like, yeah, you got a point there, you know. So
yeah.
And I'd rather have that than one thing I've always told him and his sister: just if you're gonna argue a point, know both sides and know what you're talking about. Mm-hmm. If you don't, then it's better to stay quiet.
Yeah, it's better to be thought of a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. I don't know who said that.
Yeah, it's a great quote.
I was talking to another friend of mine the other day about the idea of like labels, and he was like, "I'm going to stop using the word conservative." I'm like, "Okay,
yeah.
What are you going to replace it with?" He's like, "Thoughtfulness," because the more you think about stuff and the more you ponder stuff, the more you go, "Okay, as much as I'd like the world to be this way, it is not. And so what's the best way to function within a world that will never be perfect?" And the answer is give less people less power.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Yeah.
So
I think that's a great point. I mean, even with me, we say we're conservative. That's kind of changed, and it labels yourself, and people turn you off right away. But when you're open and say, "Hey, this is what I believe," you say, lay it out. They kind of like, "Oh yeah, I kind of believe that too," and you're like, well, "We're on the same page."
When it's a shifting scale too, because like in the '60s, I would probably be like a Democrat. Like I'd probably be a Jimmy Carter Democrat after looking at what the FBI under Nixon was like getting involved with.
Yeah.
Like but at the time they were like, the government should have less control over people doing whatever they want to do. And like, that's where I align with. And now, especially during COVID, that thing just flipped.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, like I'm not a big labels person, but if you're going to label me, now I'm on the other side, not because my ideas changed, but because the sides flipped. Like Bill Maher is a great example. I don't know if Bill Maher was talking
especially as of late.
Yeah, well, because his side went off the deep end, not because he's very open about saying like, my ideas haven't changed. Like you guys all changed.
Well, I mean, where would JFK lie today? On what side?
Oh, an extreme right, conservative, alt-right, fascist.
Asking what you could do for your country.
Yeah.
Imagine a Democrat saying that now.
Yeah.
It'd be crazy.
Yeah. And so the Cuban Missile Crisis, right?
Yeah.
What was it called? There was a specific operation during the Cuban Missile Crisis that the CIA was wanting to plant a false flag so that JFK could go into Cuba and be justified for doing it. So false flag, for people who don't know what that is like the military trying to justify attacking, putting something in place to justify attacking. So yeah, they want to do a false
create a narrative.
Yeah,
so you can go in there.
Yeah, like well, Dave punched me in the face. Well, he didn't, but I said he did, so now I get to punch him.
Yeah.
Right. So that was a whole thing that the CIA did to JFK. JFK heroically said, "What are you, crazy? We're not going to do that. That's insane."
Operation Northwoods.
No, yeah. There.
Cam with the assist.
Yeah, no, that's Northwoods. Yeah, he said like that's insane. JFK was a Democrat. Like nowadays, especially with what's going on in Ukraine, I think the roles would be entirely reversed.
Yeah. It's so crazy. Like and I think that's going back. I mean, that's going to be probably the title of this podcast. No labels, because you wouldn't be able to put a label on JFK anymore. You'd be like, huh? What? Yeah. Democrat that has conservative thoughts? I don't know.
Yeah, and again, relative to the time he was in, like, JFK now is like Trumpier than Trump, like, which is a crazy thing to think about.
That is insane.
Yeah,
but I think people don't study history. Mm-hmm. People don't, think about those guys and what they stood for. And he was America first before America first.
Well, most people have been historic. Like Bill Clinton was also America first,
right.
Like in a lot of ways. And it only until like the 2010s where people, your critical theory people have been started to gain steam and go, yeah, we're a bad country. Like,
I think that's a good thing about social media now, because you can pull up all these old speeches from like Clinton, even with Fauci the other day. They found that one where he's like, "Oh, if you have the flu virus, natural immunity," and you pull up this stuff and it's like, but it flips.
It's fascinating because you used to be able to get away with that, like in the 90s. Like the current president of the United States would go back and forth on issues on TV, but nobody would catch it because you have to have been watching the entire time. One, you would have to have been watching the entire time, and two, you had to have a platform to be able to play back what you were watching the entire time. Yep. And in a lot of ways, I think there are some politicians, himself included, who forget that that's not how it is anymore.
Right.
You can't just go back and forth like the deterrence or sanctions.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember him saying sanctions were never meant to deter.
Yeah.
And like there's clips of his whole cabinet saying the only reason we're doing this is to deter. So like,
yeah.
If you live in that world in the past of like where you used to be able to get away with that, now you can't. So if there's one good thing about the internet, you're right. That's you can call people out on that sort of crap whenever you want.
Okay, you're young. Your wife's young. 31's great, dude. Don't trust me, dude. Enjoy it.
I'd rather be 21.
Yeah. Most people like yourself, young married couple, move out of California. Mm-hmm. Why do you guys stay?
Future child care from grandma when we have kids. Honest to God, that's the only reason. There's a lot of family things going on currently internally that would have made it very difficult. We also we bought a house. We were not planning to buy anything in California, and then an opportunity came up that was too good, and now we're stuck. We're not stuck, but there's just a lot of things that are here too. And there's also the component of I love this place. I don't want to bounce.
Yeah.
Like there's every incentive to bounce. Like, dang, if I could move to Phoenix and work at TPUSA full time rather than commuting via airplane, that would be fantastic. But there's that component of like, California used to be a well-run state, and it is not anymore.
Right.
And in everything, you can either choose to jump ship or work to fix it. I currently am choosing the latter. Now, there is a point where it gets too crazy. Like, there is a point where if I'm paying 80% of my income in taxes and half of that's to the state, then Yeah, I was talking to a friend. I had lunch with a friend earlier today, and he was telling me about his tax situation. I'm like, I mean, he does pretty well. But I'm like, holy cow, man. Like, yeah, I might actually consider moving.
It is pretty intense.
Yeah.
It is pretty intense.
Yeah.
I tell everybody, for us, God would have to tell us to move. If it doesn't tell us to move, then he'll provide. I mean, that's just my belief. I mean, I just figured, hey, for now, somebody's got to stay and fight a little bit.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it does get overwhelming. You know, you get your little yearly bonus, and it's like 40% is gone, and you're like, wait, what? then you want to bless God with another 10%. So it's like, hey man, what happened to that bonus? It's done. But
Yeah.
there is a lot of people that are here that still, want to fight, still want to try to make a stand, and I think that's a good thing.
So what is the line for you?
Oh man. For me, see, you're not supposed to ask the questions, but you know what? Recently, my thinking kind of changed on that. My wife doesn't want to move. We have family situations too. Our whole family, both
Everybody
sides,
does.
lives here.
Yeah.
Her parents are older. My mom's getting older. So there's a lot of components there. I think if it got too crazy, too wild, yeah. But once again, it would have to be God telling us to move.
Mm-hmm.
But I do tell my kids, like, hey, if my son goes to Arizona a lot, he likes it there. If he had an opportunity there, then cool. I tell my
Do you want a job there? We can talk after this. I got one for you.
There you go. And then same with my daughter. She's 25, so I'm like, hey, if you find love and you guys decide to pick up and move.
Yeah.
Now, if they move somewhere else, that
might change your circumstances.
That might change the circumstances.
Yeah.
It's still have to be on what the Lord says. But for now, we're rooted here. I wouldn't say necessarily I plan on retiring here because I want my 401k to last a little bit longer than get burned
2
here.
years.
But, yeah.
Yeah.
But it is. I think safety wise, I think tax wise is big. I think business wise is all components to and then of course spiritual wise would be the main one for us.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, who knows what could happen?
It's going to be interesting to see over the next couple of years, because Gavin's running for president. As an announcer, that's his entire thing.
Yeah.
Nobody was more upset that Donald Trump lost than Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom wanted Trump to win more than anybody else in the world, for reasons that are boring, probably.
I mean, he probably, I can beat him, and let me go up against him, and I look cooler than him, and I've done this.
So if Trump had won in 2020, that puts a 2024 election wide open. There's no incumbent Republican. There's no incumbent Democrat.
True.
Gavin would be a sitting governor of the largest state in the union running for president of the United States in 2024. Now that Trump didn't win, he's got to deal with Kamala Harris, the incumbent vice president in 2024. He's not going to be able to run in 2024. Yeah. He's then going to have to push it out to 2028, in which he will be a former governor. And so who cares about former governors? Like, who cares about that? And if Kamala were to win in 2024, which is not possible because she is who she is, but then he would have to push out to 2032. What is he doing? He can't. He can't physically do it. So, where was I going with that? Gavin wants to be the president. And I think a lot of the legislation that he's pushing through, or his part of his agenda, is geared towards getting him there.
Right.
Because in order to be the president, you got to get to the primary. In order to get to the primary, you got to go as far to your side as humanly possible. And I think we're seeing a lot of that. A lot of the craziness, I think, is coming from Gavin's want to win the Democratic primary. And then to do that, he's got to get the wokest of the wokes on his side.
Do you think there's enough of them out there? The wokest of the woke right now? For him to win something like that?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's because the thing is, like, in the primary, right, it's not the general election. You don't need 50% like you would in the general election. In the primaries,
the highest percentage of
you can get through with a plurality of 10%. Right. So, yeah, if you can get all of the wokes on your side.
It's been so bad, though, man.
Yes, it has. But a lot of people don't judge based on the same metrics we judge. I judge based on can businesses open and operate? How are the taxes? What is the infrastructure like? The other side judges on different metrics. How many black, gay, lesbians, transgender people did he hire? It's a different metric. And so when you base that off a different metric, you're right, it is terrible. But it's just terrible for the people who make money and have jobs. It's not terrible for the people who only keep score by how many diversity points you have. And there's nothing, I don't know, that might be the bad thing. And also, to even put a further damper on this California outlook, a lot of people running for governor this cycle. I would encourage people who don't like Gavin to not care about the governor's race that much. Gavin is sitting on $40 million in campaign money. As much as people aren't going to like to hear this, who may lean to my side of the aisle, if you don't, you're going to be happy. He's going to win. It's really not a question.
It's crazy.
So with that, take your money and take your enthusiasm and throw it into local races, because there are a lot of state Senate seats, state assembly seats, supervisor seats that are up for grabs that we can win to help take California back. We are not going to do that if we throw $10 million at a failed governor's race.
Wow. Is that kind of the same strategy they have for Congress right now? You see a lot of Democrats retiring. You see a lot of
Democrats are retiring because they don't want to get smacked.
Okay.
The Democratic Party is going to get smacked in the midterms. Historically speaking, the president and the president's party always wins. Not always wins, but they do well in the general election during presidential years. During the midterms,
switches, right?
It goes, like Obama won the House, the Senate, and the presidency in 2008. He lost his butt in 2010. I think they lost like 60 seats in the House, like crazy flip.
Yeah, they did.
And then also, Democrats do poorly in midterms. That's just statistically true. In presidentials, everybody knows there's a presidential race, so there's a bigger turnout. In midterms, Republicans are generally the only ones aware that midterms are happening, and so Republicans tend to do well. So in Congress, they're getting swamped regardless. And then I know several people on the left side of the aisle that are like, yeah, we're in for a kicking. So
wow,
yeah, it's a weird game. Like, it is a weird game.
Why did you get involved in politics in the first place? I mean, it is so frustrating. It is so devious. It is so just every bad thing I'm sure you've seen and heard, and
part of me loves it.
Yeah,
like it's the biggest, it's the highest stakes competitive competition in the world. Like, you can talk, people winning the FIFA World Cup, or winning the Super Bowl, or winning some Grand Slam tennis championship. And those are big competitions. But what implication does that have? Like, okay, you get to hold up a trophy. In the world of politics, you work 2 years for one night on election night.
Yeah.
And to throw in, to make it even sweeter, not only are you working for that one night has implications. Like, lasting implications on the way people live. And so part of me is like extraordinarily competitive when it comes to that. That's probably why.
Wow.
Because I think it's the most competitive realm on planet Earth that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's part of me hates the way the game is played, but part of me also loves when I'm able to do something that other people didn't think of.
Does every politician have to compromise their beliefs at some point? When I was young, I liked politics.
Oh yeah.
And I remember talking to my dad about it. Mm-hmm. And my dad told me that. He's like, the problem with politics is that one day you're going to have to compromise your beliefs, and what are you going to do? And I said,
I think you're looking at, in terms of like legislation, you're looking at lesser of two evils type things. It's like compromising your beliefs in order to obtain an objective that has a higher priority to that particular belief. I don't even know. I don't know if I would put them in a category of compromising their beliefs. Like
okay, so if we got what I'm saying is well, there has to be some sort of compromise, right, in everything.
Yeah,
you got to work with the other side of the aisle.
Of course.
But to the point where you're compromising, maybe taking some money on the back end from somebody, or maybe have somebody come into your office and having a little influence on you, and things like that.
So this is the age-old question that I ask. The answer is I don't know. But the question that I have is the type of person that would seek political office the same type of person that would take back-end money or do some devious things with their power? Are they already that person going in, or do they get corrupted along the way?
Yeah.
The answer is I don't know, but I've seen both. I've seen good people run for office and be successful and turn into maniacs, and I've seen people who, a lot of them, I look at running their campaign and go, you should not have any power at all. I agree with you on a policy-wise, but holy cow, you're a crazy person. There are some politicians out there like that. And so on an individual basis, you have to ask that question for everybody. Thankfully, nowadays, there are a lot of politicians that I know, that's a whole other thing. That's weird to me that I get texts from sitting congressmen. That's like a weird
crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. But now that I know these people, I'm like, okay, you went in with great intentions. Right. Hopefully you can keep those, right? But you're at least not the type of person that you're like, you want this power for all the wrong reasons. So yeah,
so that's possible. They're out there.
Yeah, of course they're out. There's a handful of really, really good people in Congress and the Senate, and just out there in the political offices that they hold. But there's also a lot of crazy people, which I think brings back the entire point of because there's such a disparity of good people and crazy people, and the crazy people probably outweigh the good people, they probably shouldn't be able to do as much. Bring it back to the point: the government is bad at doing things and should do less things.
Yes. All right, man. Let's shift gears here.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't know, and I mentioned it in the intro. You play music.
Yeah. My wife was the worship leader at a church down the street for 7 years, and so I was the utility musician.
Oh, you played everything?
Not well. Let's not give me credit for being
kept the beat.
Yeah. Oh, we don't have a drummer this week. Great. Let me play drums now. We don't have a bass player. Whatever. The only thing I didn't play there is the piano, and that would have been rough. But no, yeah, my wife and I do music. She's been doing worship music since way before we were dating. And then she took a job as a side gig as the worship leader at our church.
Nice.
And I think 2019, we're let's put out some of our own music. I've had an interesting musical past too. But yeah, we do. Yeah,
I heard about this interesting musical past. It had to do with some boy band stuff or what was that about?
You're not supposed to do any of the back end homework on this.
I try to do my job. You know what I mean? I don't want it all to be politics and policy and everything else. But you were in this boy band, or you tried out for a boy band?
I was in a boy band for a hot second. And
what were they called?
Social Network with 2 Ks, because we all met on social networking systems.
All right. Early what?
My early 20s, but I think it was 2012.
Okay, so early internet days, social media days.
Yeah, totally. Social media was prevalent, but still relatively new, especially nowadays. Yeah, man, did some singing, did more dancing than I ever expected to do, especially choreographed dancing.
Could you dance?
Could I dance?
I'm just asking, bro. I don't know if half Samoan, half Irish guys could dance. Hey, I just want to ask. Do you
see pigment? I can dance.
We're gonna have to pull up some of those old
No,
videos.
I don't.
bro.
No, we don't need to verify my
gonna
statement.
verify.
Just take it as truth and run with it.
I verify everything. Man. Every good podcaster, every good person that's online verifies. Bro.
I can tear up a wedding dance floor. I'm not sure how good I was at the choreography.
I think everybody turns up the wedding dance floor. I wouldn't say it's always good, but definitely. So the music, pretty good stuff, dude. To be honest, you and your wife sound really great. Your wife has a great voice.
She's so much better than I am at most things, but music specifically. Like she's
like most wives.
Yeah. I think you have to say that. I have to say that, but I actually do mean it. Not that you don't mean it.
No. Hey. You know, she believed in me before I believed in myself. Let's just put that out there, dude.
Yeah, she comes from a very musical family, and it shows. It's kind of funny because I'm in music because I enjoy music. Not that she doesn't enjoy music, but she's just one of those people that can like hear things that other people can't. And it's funny because the only time we get into arguments really is when I can't find a harmony that she wants me to find. And
nice.
I don't get ridiculed for anything else other than why can't you sing that note? And I can't explain it to her. I can't. You're asking, I don't know, you're asking me why I can't dunk a basketball. Like
right.
I just can't. It's not because of a lack of trying. I just can't do it. So yeah, no, she's the musician in the family, and then her dad is an incredible piano player, and then her grandpa was a touring musician and did very, very well.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it just runs in her family.
Oh yeah. You heard of Styles Music down the street in Pomona?
No.
Okay. The music shop they are.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So they're a musical family, and I'm kind of like the outsider that like enjoys it, but doesn't have the natural capability that they have.
Well, you play something at least, you know.
I play something, but I don't. Again, her dad can hear something
and play it.
Hear something and then wait days and go, "What was that song like?" And
I hate those people.
Okay, how do I keep up with that?
I hate those.
I can't.
People. Yeah, I can just listen 10 seconds. Oh yeah, I got it, and just play it.
Yeah,
yeah. My friend was like that.
Yeah,
I was like, it's ridiculous.
Do you do music too?
I used to.
Okay.
I used to have a little band back in the day.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
Screamo?
It was a Rage POD kind of mix. Yeah. You can verify it.
Oh, I love Rage Against the Machine. I can't stand what they say, but I love that kind of music.
Yeah, it was 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. I had a little run, played the Whiskey a few times in different places. So it was yeah.
I think I'm no longer welcome at the Whiskey, but
really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, they know who you are now?
Well, you know how I mean, you feel cool because you're like, I'm playing at the Whiskey a Go-Go.
Right.
And you do some things you maybe shouldn't.
Okay. we played the, you have to, everybody out there, it's cool to play there. If you're a band from LA, you got to play there at least once. Uh-huh. But you have to sell the tickets.
You got to sell tickets.
And they put you on like Monday or Tuesday night.
Yep.
Right. And you're trying to get 50 people of your closest friends to
pay $20 to come see what they can see in your garage.
Right. And then half the people are like, dude, I have to pay $20 to come see you play. Yeah. Half the people want free tickets, so you have to buy them yourself. Mm-hmm. I think I bought like 20 free tickets and gave them out to my friends. They showed up. The cool thing is that if you do good on those dead nights, they invite you to like a Friday, Saturday night. So the guy's like, hey, you guys did great, and we love the turnout. You can play on Friday. Yeah. I said, great. So a couple months later, we booked a Friday, killed it. Still had to sell tickets, of course. Yeah. But there's other bands there. You're having a good time. Cool. I mean, I guess we did good because, the owner or whoever was running the place, the manager, sends the bouncer over with a tray of beers. And, of course, none of us drank. So he puts the tray down and he goes, hey, man, great job. They told me to send this over to you. It's all you. Oh, thanks, man. Just put it right there. My buddy's brother, which drank like crazy, he's like, Dave, I know you guys don't drink. Can I grab those beers? I said, yeah, you can have them, dude. Cool. he goes and grabs the tray, and the bouncer grabs him and pulls him back. He goes, "Hey man, don't touch their beers." Like, oh, it's cool, dude. He can have them. But it's a great place to play. I mean, you have to play. The thing that sucked was they video recorded you.
That's why we're not. Yeah,
I didn't buy it because we didn't have no more money. We bought all the tickets.
You're out of money. So we were sneaking video guys in.
Oh, see,
and then they caught us, and then we snuck them
Dude.
back in, and then they're like, "You're done."
I think it was like $150.
Oh, it was crazy. Yeah,
it was
at
like
the time.
At the time, it wasn't nothing, right? I'm like, the guy's like, "You want the videotape? We recorded it," and I was like, "How much is it?" He goes, $150, and I was like,
I need to get home
money.
tonight.
Yeah, I had no money, and I went to our guitar player. He's like, "Yeah, I haven't got no money, dude." Went to our other guy, "Hey, you got any money? Can we scrounge some money together?" We did. My wife goes, "We should have begged to have that video. Now would have been so cool."
It would have been, but at the time, what would you have done with it? Just have it?
Yeah, there was
Like
no
it's not
internet,
like
right?
it's not like you can't put it on
out
YouTube.
there.
Like, so yeah, that makes sense. Like you wouldn't have done anything.
It
with
would have been a throwback.
Yeah, it would have
Thursday
been
thing.
cool. It would have been cool to have.
but it's not cool anymore.
Yeah, man, that's
Good times.
Those are, and it's interesting to see. Man, I don't want to bring other people into this. Yeah, but it's kind of interesting.
Okay.
One of the guys in the boy band, actually, well, a couple of guys in the boy band, you know, it's interesting to see the trajectory of their careers and lives.
They do good.
Yeah. Well,
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's in the world that I wasn't doing great in. Like, I would have loved to continue playing music, but like, I didn't have the chops, and I'm still trying. Like, I'm still working at it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. A couple years later, this guy named Max, who was in the group, like, got nominated for his 4th Emmy. Like, he's doing great.
wild.
He was engaged to Demi Lovato for a hot second, and like, I'm like, oh, like this is cool.
Before she was Demi Lovato.
No, when she was Demi, like
When
this,
she
is
was
like,
Demi
this is like
Lovato.
last year. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was before. Yeah. Wow. I don't want to get it.
I don't want to do
Yeah. But I don't know. It's interesting to see like just how different people pan out and all.
Yeah,
that sort of
all
stuff.
the guys are in the band are successful. One of my friends works for Mattel and different stuff. They're all doing well. But yeah, it's funny. I mean, it was a great time. I don't regret it. It was fun. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah.
And I could say I did it.
Yeah.
And there's some stuff still out there on YouTube somewhere. And so it's always cool.
I'm still hustling it. I'm trying to that's what I like doing most. Again, I wish I was better at it.
Yeah.
But
We have a great partner. I mean, listen, you guys are great. Johnny Swim or something like that. Maybe you guys,
them.
Yeah, in there somewhere. That's why I see you guys. I mean, definitely great.
yeah,
Before we go, I know you got to go.
I don't have anywhere to be, so
sweet.
don't wrap up on that account because
Sweet.
I had a photo shoot at 5. Because I'm still doing photo shoots. Like it's yeah, dude.
At least you got all the poses down from the boy band days, right?
Oh no, I'm taking photos.
Oh, you're taking
like, I'm
photos.
still so I was working in politics and I was doing all the production stuff. And like now in the last 6 months, like now I'm like doing on camera stuff, but I wasn't like I've worked my butt off to get all of these clients in the political realm. I'm not just going to give that up.
Right.
And so like it's funny. I'll go on like a nationally syndicated TV show and then come back and into my 2004 Honda Civic and go take photos for $500. So
Still hustling.
dude. You have to.
You have to, right?
Yeah, because
You never know what could happen.
no.
Okay. I have a hard time. Maybe you can help me answer this. And well, not help me answer this, but where do you think the church should lie within politics? Dude. Because we have some extremes. What I mean by extremes is people that are super heavy into politics and they're big time leaders. I mean, Jack Hibbs is one of them. I'm not throwing him under the bus or anything, but it's true. I mean, he got a lot of guys that come to his church and they're big in your realm, right?
I'm going speaking with him April this month.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me know. I'll
be
go check it out.
Yeah.
And then you got people that are kind of just
Yeah.
they're trying to create a balance. What I've learned is there's times when I might post something on Facebook and I try not to be too controversial or anything like that. Just kind of bring light to something. And then, but I always find like it's a hard balance for me between the message of the gospel and the message of politics. And but they go together kind of sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes it's hard for people, and you don't want the message of politics to overshadow the message of the gospel.
Of course.
But a lot of things that go into politics affect the church. We saw that in the last couple of years. Church is closing.
I used to be a big proponent of keep politics out of the church. Like, I used to be like, no, this is not where you talk about this. If you want to be in a small group and that comes up, fine. But from the pulpit, not the right place.
Yeah.
In the last couple years, that idea has shifted more, not necessarily because I think I've changed my outlook on it, but because politics has had a much bigger role in my life. If, like, in the, I don't know, the 80s or the 90s, when, like, the government just didn't have as much involvement, you wouldn't even, and I don't know this firsthand, but you wouldn't even know what your neighbor was. Like, are they a registered Republican or a registered Democrat? What do they think about this issue?
Right.
Like, that would be like, your political ideology would be like number 10 if it even made the top 10.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm a husband, I'm a father, I'm a soccer coach, I'm a
sheet metal worker.
Yeah, whatever it is that you are.
Yeah.
Political party ranks so low. Now, dude, it's the first thing people tell you. Yeah. Like, hi, my name is Ralph, I'm a conservative. Why? Why are you saying that?
My pronouns are.
Yeah, like, but really, that's like at the forefront. Like, people's political ideology nowadays, like, they wear it as a badge. Like, dude, look at masks. Like, not to get down the ringer of those things, but like, we're past the point of like, pretending that those are effective. But there are people that still wear them, and what they're signifying is that I align with this party. So the rank in which you describe yourself, politics has jumped up to the top. And so with that being said, and it taking over people's lives, I really appreciate some pastors taking a stronger stance on it.
I think it's bigger. I think because it infringed upon the church more than ever. Oh, yeah. Especially the last few years. Before we would, you had the major issues and we would be aware of them. But I think because they kind of overstepped their bounds in a lot of these areas, I think the church was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. And that's part of like now, okay, I also think that there should be multiple gradations of how much the church is involved, right? Like, we go to a church that, like, the guy's not really talking about politics much at all. And then there are churches that talk about politics a lot. And I don't dislike either one. Like, I think they both should exist, and people should have the choice to go whichever way they want to go.
I agree. I visited a church. I love the church, but I had to ask the pastor, is this a woke church?
Yeah.
Where you start preaching ideology from some political organization rather than the gospel.
Yeah.
Where do we stand? What's first here? Like, I get some things, but what's first here? And he's like, no, we're not a woke church. And I go, I'm sorry I had to ask that. He goes, no, I get asked that all the time now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and so like with that, there's some things that churches probably should start taking stances on. And again, this is not, I wouldn't have said this 5 years ago.
I don't think anybody would.
No, I would have been like, no, like these are separate things. But nowadays, like, I've come to appreciate guys like Pastor Jack, because if you do, my parents go to that church, and I grew up going to that church. I've been with them a number of times, and the majority of the sermon is Bible-centric, and then relates to culture and how it is now. The problem is, politics is so ingrained in the culture. Like, how do you avoid that?
Right.
And so, yeah, to answer the question of what do I think about it in the church is like, the more we can get politics out of our culture, and by that I mean have government have less control over our lives, you wouldn't have to. It wouldn't really be a thing. But we're in a circumstance now where it's just so integrated with everything that we do, you can't really avoid it.
Yeah,
it's not possible.
My pastor said something the other day. He said, the whole stance where separation of church and state. He goes, it wasn't for the state; it was to protect the church.
Yeah,
it could be the church coming into.
It's a government rule. It's not a church rule,
right?
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, Yeah, everybody looks at it the other way. Like,
Yeah.
keep church out of, or keep the 10 Commandments out of this courtroom, or don't put your hand on the Bible when you're swearing.
Yeah.
But he said no, it was the other way.
Yeah.
It was so the church wouldn't infringe upon the rights of the church.
It's
I mean, the state wouldn't infringe upon the rights of the church.
Was it John Adams was like, this government was made for a moral and religious people, and it doesn't work otherwise. Like this whole system of democracy that we've set up doesn't work if the majority of people aren't a moral society. And I think he believed that morality came from the church, which I think too.
I do too. I think it came from, if you boil it all the way down to the very center of it, it came from the 10 Commandments.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about every law that's made, you can point it all the way back to one of the 10 Commandments.
Yeah. So yeah, and with that sentiment in mind of, this only works if people are moral and people are religious and that's what it's made for, then the church has a majorly important role to play. I don't know if majorly is a word.
We'll call it a word. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. But yeah, no, I think that's a huge component. So, unfortunately, there's no getting around, like,
especially
having
now,
to talk about politics, or at least like what the government is doing in your church.
Right. Cam said it's a word.
It is majorly perfect. Cool. Yeah.
I think that's definitely something I wanted to talk about, because that was something that was on my mind, where it's like, is this good? Is it bad? But you're right. It has stepped over the line. It has came into the church.
I would love to live in a world where it's not necessary. Like, I would love to live in a world where the church doesn't get involved, because there's always going to be involvement, some way, shape, or form, but doesn't have to make it the focal point. Right. But again, it's unavoidable.
Yeah, I think when they decided to shut down churches, I think that created a whole new atmosphere.
Yeah, and there are instances where things have to happen that you don't necessarily like, but that wasn't one of them, and that's what I think awakened a lot of people, and we're like, this is a problem, and
because everything else was open. Well, all the stores were open. You can go here, you can go there. The bars were open, the strip clubs were open, but the church is where you're going to catch.
What's funny?
This thing.
What's funny? On like Instagram, or what's the other app? Time Hop. My wife uses Time Hop. It gives you like, here's what happened a year ago.
Yeah.
Here's what
Goes
happened
back
2 years ago today. Last year, we were, because like this whole COVID thing has been kind of a blur, right?
Yeah. I can't. When you go back to when it first started, you're like, that was a long time ago. A lot of things have happened since then.
Yeah. And also, like we've been over it. Like I don't generally even talk about COVID anymore, because it's just like
it's just burned out.
Well, it's burned out, but it's also like, who are you people that are still like worried about this thing? Like, I haven't been wearing masks in stores for like a year and a half
at least.
And so we were trying to figure out, okay, when did that idea shift to go, like, was it like September of 2020? We went to it was a Time Hop. April 27th of 2020, we like made a video like, all right, we're done with this now. Like a month. Now we're 2 years into this thing. In a month, we were like, all right, let's go back to church. We're done. Like, sorry. Like, good luck. We're done with this.
I think it was like May for us. And I remember going to a friend's house, and they're like, come over. Yeah. Let's barbecue.
And it was forget how quickly that happened, because really that's 2 months.
Yeah.
And relative to the 2 year time span that it's in, you forget that, like, oh, I've been over this for a while.
Yeah.
And they shut down they're not shutting down churches anymore, but like that's recent.
Right.
Like
a year and a half.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty still in people's mind. And we've saw it with people not coming back to church.
Dude, yeah.
You know what I mean? They you look around and you're like, man, I remember this place was full. Mm-hmm. And now they're not coming. And maybe it's because it could be a lot of things, right? It could be because they're lazy and we got online and it works better than it ever worked before. And we everything's set up. Who knows? But there is people out there that are just not going back.
There was a couple of churches or a couple of pastors that I've heard of that have stopped streaming. They're like, no. You don't get to stay at home. Like, we're done with the whole COVID thing. We're going to stop streaming so that you can't be at home.
I don't know
if that's a good idea or not. Like,
it's tough.
It's interesting that's their perspective on it of like, no, like you got to come back.
Yeah.
And maybe they have, maybe they haven't. I don't actually know.
I think it was I think that whole thing too with the church, it kind of created, and it was where people started saying, we don't need the building. You know what I mean? And I think us as humans are like, we need to gather. We need to be together.
I didn't know that at first. I got on the train of like, church is not a building, it's everywhere. Like that, I was like, that works.
Sounds good.
Yeah. And then, 3 months into it, I'm like, okay, I'm not seeing anybody, I'm not talking to anybody. Like maybe this doesn't work. Like,
right.
Like same thing with like distance learning. Like, all right, so
he hated that.
That didn't work at all.
Yeah.
Or it just didn't it wasn't effective. Like calling it distance learning was not the accurate way to describe it. It was distance nap time. Like, I don't know.
I'll be honest. I mean, yeah, it was. I got my degree online. It was easy.
Yeah.
It was stupid.
Yeah.
Right. Here's the assignment. Here, go read this, and then
we're gonna go off on a whole other thing. I think more people should fail out of college. College is too easy, especially online college.
Yeah.
Like there are too many people.
I'm not gonna lie. It's time consuming. It was time consuming, but it wasn't hard. And it was funny. I'll tell you like this. I took an algebra class.
Yeah.
And I'm in my late 40s. Mm-hmm. So algebra's been gone from me for a long time, right? So I'm like, I could take this class. Mm-hmm. I did the first assignment, and I got a C on it. And I called the advisor, and I was like, hey, listen, I'm not going to pass this class.
Yeah.
What can I do? I need 3 more classes to get this degree. What can I do? She goes, she's laughing at me. She laughs at me, and she goes, what do you mean? And after I go, I'm not going to pass. I'm telling you right now.
Yeah.
She goes, well, what's the big deal? And after I go, well, there's a final.
Yeah.
And it's like, and she goes, it's 15% of your grade. And I said, okay. She goes, the quizzes are open book. The homework's open book. And the final's only 15% of your grade. So I roll all the way through. Okay, well, everything's open book. Then, hey, I can look up one of these websites and type in the problem, and then it's going to help me figure this problem out, right?
Dude.
And then I get to the final, and I open up the final, and I'm looking at the problems, and I answer 2 problems, and I go, screw this, submit. I submit it, get an F.
Yeah.
I got 3 problems correct out of like 5.
Yeah.
I did, and I got like an 87 on the whole class.
Yeah.
Now tell me to do algebra right now on this paper. It's not going to happen.
Yeah. Well, that's part of the problem. It's like you there's no threat of failure in higher education nowadays. Like there's no threat of, I might not actually get out of this. I think people are aware of that and then go get degrees with no ability to do anything after that. Like my wife is a therapist and she did her master's degree, and there are people that she's explained to me in that program that went through their entire undergrad, piled up a bunch of student debt. They went through their entire master's degree, piled up a bunch of student debt, and now they can't find it. We're 4 years out, and they still can't find a therapist job. So
or it's a job that pays like $45,000 a year.
Oh yeah,
and they owe a ton.
Well, at that point, the school university system is doing them a disservice. Like if somebody's bad at something, you're not helping them saying, oh yeah, no, you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
No, like you're bad at this. Go do something else. Like, and that's totally fine. You know how many times I got told that? Like I'm not a salesperson at all. And I for a long period of time was trying to go do sales meeting. And finally, one of my friends sat me down and was like, dude, you suck at this. And like, while I understand that people think that that's like a mean thing to say,
right?
Everything's worked out great since I stopped doing the thing that I suck at. So like, as it relates to college, like you're not doing anybody a favor by just giving them a piece of paper and a ton of debt.
Right.
Like you're better off making it more difficult so that people don't pass as often, so that it becomes something that matters. And that unfortunately trickled all the way down to like elementary school, with the whole like distance learning thing. Like none of it worked.
I feel bad. We're not going to know the ramifications of those elementary and junior high kids.
It's child abuse.
But when they get to high school, those 2 years that they were supposed to be doing this online learning,
it didn't work. Didn't do anything.
It didn't do anything.
Yeah, nothing at all. And it's not even like there's already studies out there that have been like comprehensive and pretty spot on of like, yeah, this is not like happening. Like
Right.
it didn't do anything. These kids are at a huge disadvantage. And geez, if you want to go on that tangent, you want to talk about socioeconomic divide? What kids got pulled out to be put in private schools?
Right.
The rich kids. Like, so who did you effectively screw? The poor kids. And just given demographics, the minority kids.
Possibly setting them back one generation. So here's one generation. They were thinking, okay, you stand on our shoulders. This happens, and now you're back to starting square one.
Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know.
Is school for everybody?
No.
College for everybody?
No.
Why is... I work with guys, make a great living.
Yeah.
And they're construction guys.
Yeah.
Foreman,
Yeah.
$50, $60 an hour, love their job. If they walk into any room where, where they're not construction guys, they're looked down upon. And I laugh because I'm like, no, dude, this guy makes more money than you. And he's way more successful. I've seen his house. He goes on vacation. He has quads. They have a boat.
Yeah.
Like, this is all construction money that he made. Where were you 15 years ago? I was in prison. I was a dropout. I mean, so I don't agree that school's for everybody. And I think we've kind of gone in this country where those trades are things where we push people. Once again, we push people that probably don't belong in school or can't function in school into thinking they have to get a degree to be successful.
What is the purpose of school? In my mind, the purpose of schooling is to prepare you for a future career in which you can be productive to society. If that's not happening, don't go. Like, if you're going to get I kid you not, there was this girl that I went to college with who was an arts major with an emphasis in crafts. She got a bachelor's degree in arts and crafts.
Crafts?
Crafting, yeah. Like, arts and crafts.
Yeah.
Literally arts, like...
I didn't know they had that.
I didn't either. Like, so, but what do you do with that? And because she went and did that, I don't know her financial situation. Maybe her parents were rich and she just goes and gets dumb degrees every 4 years. Like, maybe. But
the fact that a college has that is probably one of the main problems.
I don't think it was put together very well in terms of like the naming of it. But so like with that, if you're going to do that sort of thing and just get the degree for the sake of having the degree, like it doesn't matter whether or not you have the degree. Like me, like I went to college and my wife went to college and I met my wife in college, which is like the only retaining thing that I have from college. Like I have a business degree, but in hindsight, I'm thinking like, all right, fortunate. I was privileged because my parents worked hard. They were able to pay for my college. Imagine instead of going to school, I got a $100,000 loan from my parents to go start a business at 19. Like, where would I be now? Rather than spending that money to go to college, like I don't know, and there's no way to ever know. But the way my brain works, going to school, the actual part, the part of that actually going to school didn't make any difference. Now I'm going to argue against myself.
Because what you're doing now.
Yes, what I'm doing now. But now I'm going to argue against myself and say that I did learn a lot from college, but not from the classroom. I learned the best
responsibility.
How to cheat better. Like my friend Alex calls me like a bat.
What's that website, Cam? Quizlet. What's the other one? There's another one. Course Hero. All that stuff where you can go in there and get any paper for any class.
That's better education than the education that I got. Learning how to trying to figure out how to circumvent the system of taking tests and getting grades and I don't want to say cheating because cheating sounds bad. Circumvent. Learning how to circumvent that system was more beneficial than the actual material that I was learning. System. Yeah. Well, so my friend has always called me like a backdoor person. Like I've never in my life started from like the bottom and like gone to the top. And maybe sometimes I bend the truth a little bit. I was actually talking to a bunch of political guys the other day, the guys that I work for, that I run all of their social media components on their campaign.
Nice.
I was telling them, yeah, I got a call from a guy who wanted to run for governor and said, hey, I heard you're a social media expert. And I said, absolutely. I had never even dabbled in social media management before, but I just said so because I was trying to get ahead and figure stuff out. And the knowledge that I gained from trying to BS my business professors was more beneficial to me in that situation than any of the business material that they taught me.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
That's it.
I'm still doing that.
Yeah.
I have no business hosting the Daily Caller live
That is a
show.
skill within itself. Yeah. You know what I mean? I totally agree with you. I mean, I've been in meetings with the owners of my company, 10 partners, and I'm like, I don't belong here. Yeah. But this is cool. Yeah. Let me see if I can get through this. You know what I mean?
And if you can't, what's the worst that happens? Oh, you go back to what you've been doing.
That's what I say all the time.
Darn it.
I tell Cal that all the time. He went for an interview, and I go, you have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Go in there like you own the place. Yeah. Be polite.
Yeah.
Tell them what you feel. You're here to work hard. That's it. Yeah. That's all you got to do. And he's like,
bust your ass.
Yeah, bust your ass. But when you go in there for the interview,
of course,
you go in there and you say, hey, this is who I am. You have some, I wouldn't, not pride, but you have a little bit of confidence. That's the right word. And you have nothing to lose.
At an entry-level position, too, there's nothing that you can't learn within a couple of hours. Like, if you're going into, like, the labor guys at a construction site, like, that do, like, the bare minimum. Not bare minimum, but, like, in terms of, like, skills. Yeah, like,
go get this.
There's nothing
go grab
wrong.
this.
There's nothing wrong with that job. But if they lied on their resume to get that job, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I'm not advocating for people lying on their resume. I'm saying that if they did, the ability to do that job doesn't differ between the person who has 0 experience and the person who has 20 years experience.
Right.
Obviously, that goes away with skills, but you learn skills on the job. So there's any entry-level thing, you can learn whatever it is that you need to learn if you get the job and need to learn it.
Right.
I don't know. So, circling back to, do people need to go to school? Like, probably not.
Yeah.
Go to trade school. Like,
trade school, if it's for you, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's a good deal.
Yeah. Trade school is, like, fantastically cheap, comparatively.
Yeah. And I think now...
And you get a skill.
Those people are in way more demand. Than 150 people applying for a sales job, and they all have business degrees.
Not even sales, like philosophy majors. Like, what are they doing? Like, teaching philosophy? There's only so many philosophy professorships that exist.
Right.
So, like,
what separates you from that person?
Like,
nothing. You know what I mean? There's really nothing.
There's
what you read one extra book.
Not to dump on philosophy majors, but like, there's that joke that you would learn in at grad school about philosophy. Like, philosophy majors learn not to ask, would you like fries with that? How would you like fries with that? Or why would you like fries with that? Answering the important questions.
The Yoda type question.
Yeah, some philosophy majors went to law school and are making $1 million a year. So,
yeah, I mean, yeah,
yeah, not all of them are bad, but yeah, no, dude, college. There's pros and cons, but it seems like right now there are way more cons than there are pros in terms of like going to school and getting a standardized education,
and then being in debt,
and taking
forever.
on the debt, dude. The debt is nuts. Which, go back to the Clinton administration, everybody should deserve to go to college. So they basically made federal loans possible for anybody to take out doing any degree at any level. And if you were selling me a product and I had an unlimited budget, would you charge me more for that product or less for that product?
More.
Thank you. That is the university system in a nutshell.
I think when people say, education should be free, why do they say that? Because it's so expensive. So instead of saying, hey, why don't you, university, bring that price down where he's not paying $250,000 for a 4-year education.
Yeah.
I think that's the real problem than the government saying, here's free money for you. Because they're still going to charge whatever they're going to charge.
I don't know. I think I might disagree. That I think the university systems understand that anybody can take out any amount of loans.
Well, yeah.
And they do it, and so they jack up the prices. So if the federal student loan system was more standardized to a point where, like, all right, you're going to have to pay this back, and you can only take this much money. Like
they would be forced.
Yeah, the university systems can't charge $100,000 for somebody who can only take out $50,000
because in that they're going to go to some Cal State or some JC.
Yeah, they'll
or
lose
something
money.
Like that. Yeah.
So it starts.
So you're not creating a competitive market.
The government tried to equalize the playing field by allowing more people to be eligible for student loans, and they made it substantially worse.
Right.
Which comes back to the thing of the government is bad at doing things and should do less things.
Yeah. Sounds good.
Yeah, sounds good doesn't work.
Yeah.
I love that.
Dude, you're awesome, man.
Thanks, man. This has been fun.
I appreciate you coming out, taking time of your busy schedule.
It's
Turning Point USA.
I was going to say, I'm not that busy, but
Daily Caller. I mean,
it's getting to be a lot. Some days, yeah.
Me and Cam do one more thing before you leave.
Yeah.
This is called our Furious 5. We ask you 5 furious questions.
Okay.
We play a little. This is what gets people thinking. It's a little game show music there. So 5 furious questions. So, Jobob.
What up?
Question number 1 on the Street Gospel Furious 5. If you were president for one day, what would you do?
Invade Canada.
Invade Canada. Easy win.
Yeah, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? Fight us? No, we're going to invade Canada and take all their oil. And use it to our own advantage.
Dude, maybe a day? I think the Ukrainians would give more of a fight than them.
Yeah,
sorry.
100%.
Sorry, my Canada people out
Canada,
there.
a lot of people from Canada have guns, but like, holy cow, tell me what Trudeau is going to do. If I get to be president for one day, I'm invading Canada. I'm mostly kidding, just for anybody out there that's going to take that out of context.
Yeah, he's a comedian, everybody. Sarcasm and levity to the situation.
Yeah, invade Canada and then disband California.
Awesome. Yeah. All right, question number 2. The biggest impact you feel you're making with doing what you're doing?
Oh, man. I don't know. Just getting people to laugh a little bit. Like, everything is so serious. Like I talked about at the beginning. Like, everybody's so... Like, and there's nothing wrong with people that take this stuff very seriously. But I think there's a whole big... I get messages all the time of like, dude, like, I didn't know politics could be fun. Let me try to have fun with it. And that's the whole thing. So, like, if the impact that I can make is getting people to, again, realize that government is bad at doing things, should do less things, is by way of fun, so be it.
Right.
And I don't know. That I would hope that that's the impact. It probably isn't. It's probably something dumb. Like, hey, man, I didn't know you could pull off that loud shirt under a suit. But who knows?
The Joe Biden face looking up. It's funny. Under a blazer.
Yeah.
But question number 3. If you weren't doing what you're doing, what would you be doing?
This is a problem for me. I would love that Luke Combs song. It's like, I'd still be doing this if I wasn't doing this.
Really?
Well, that's what I'd like to say. But the problem is I have so many different interests in so many different things that, like, I could be happy doing a lot of different things. Like, I don't know. So, who knows, man? I'd probably still be in politics doing the back end stuff, but I could also see myself going and being a home developer in Alaska.
In Alaska?
Oh, yeah, dude. I was pretty close to buying a house in Alaska on Monday. Like, 2 days ago.
Final frontier?
I still might. Oh, yeah. I'll show you a photo of it.
Okay.
It's unbelievable. But,
are you a nature guy? You and your wife? Because that's ultimate right there. That's not like going to Big Bear and camping or something like that.
I like Alaska for the different... Like, I like being able to go to a grocery store and pick up food. So I'm not like that into the wilderness nature. And I know that that's difficult in Alaska. But... because, yeah, grocery stores are far and few between. But I like the feeling. If you've never been to Alaska, there's no way to describe the feeling of being in Alaska.
Okay.
It's just different. And I can't explain it, and I don't know what it is. But everyone should go, and you can stay at the house that I'm going to convince my wife to let me buy.
Okay. I have to check it out.
Yeah.
Question number 4. What is your ultimate goal?
Dude, I don't have no idea.
Now, just go with the flow.
Well, like, there's so many people that have like big goals and stuff. Like, I am not sure what I'm doing next week. Like,
That's a cool thing though. It's having some options there.
yeah. I mean, my ultimate goal is to like be a good husband and dad. Like, eventually.
Nice.
I don't know. I'm not. The idea of like shaping the world and modifying culture is still weird to me, and maybe they'll get unweird at some point. But like, I don't have aspirations to like go change the world. That just so happens to be what I'm doing right now. So
Right.
like, I don't know. Be a good person, I guess, is
Cool.
the lamest possible cliche answer.
It's the truth though. That's the thing.
Yeah, I hope so.
Last question. If you and your wife can play a sold out show at any venue, what venue would it be?
Probably Red Rocks in Colorado.
Red Rocks.
This outdoor amphitheater that's
Yeah,
up
familiar.
Yeah. But I don't know. See, that's dude, I don't know. Cuz there's the audience option. I like smaller, more intimate things.
Okay.
Like if I'm doing comedy or playing guitar somewhere, it's more fun if there's 100 people there than there's 100,000. Just because, like, I don't know, you can stop and
The intimacy.
like,
Yeah.
what'd you guys do today? Like,
Right.
where are you coming from? That sort of thing. Like the whole like big venue with the big audience is cool. Like from aesthetically, Red Rocks would be dope, but I'd rather play in front of 100 people than 100,000. This is a sidebar. There's a group chat I'm in with a couple of TPUSA people,
Yeah.
and it's just comic chaos. There's like these make-believe storylines going on within this group text. I've never seen more people put so much effort into developing content that will be seen by 16 people. Like, I've spent hours making videos for this group chat that has 16 people in it.
That's funny.
So, like, I like that stuff more than I like the big stuff, I think.
That's dope, man.
Yeah, I think it...
Well, thank you, man, for coming out. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the invite.
It was fun.
I wish you could get better guests than me, because, geez, I'm pretty low bar.
Wow. You know what? We've had a lot of great guests. I mean, I've...
Oh, you were telling me about it. They're way cooler than I am. I appreciate you, stepping down a peg
No.
to invite somebody like me on.
Not at all, dude. I think I wouldn't have invited you. I think you're cool. I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't like you. I wouldn't have invited you if I didn't think my audience would be receptive to what you had to say.
Yeah,
So,
I appreciate it.
you know,
It was a good time.
But maybe, just maybe, the podcast made you a little cooler. Especially with that intro, dude.
Dude, I gotta take you around to places and like be my permanent intro hype man guy.
When you're at Pastor Jack's church, maybe I'll introduce you, right?
That's gonna be fun. That's what was that, April 30th? We're there they're doing like a Take Back California event.
Maybe I'll check it out.
It'll be cool. Yeah.
Cool, man.
Should be a good time.
Hey, thanks everybody for checking it out. Be sure to share this episode with any of your friends out there. Subscribe, and check out Jobob at Jobob on the gram and
Yeah.
Daily Caller Show.
Yeah.
Awesome. Peace.